Well, a hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. Glad I'm here, Bible in hand, because of the grace of God. And I'm glad you're there, that by the grace of God you happen to be concerned about, I don't want to say what I'm all about, but you're interested in looking at what this is all about. And thank you for letting me be your tour guide in the greatest story ever told. I'm in the book of Acts, chapter 9. I want to look in verses 10 through 20 today. Last time out here, we observed the Lord got a hold of a guy finally named Saul, radically transformed him, knocked him off his horse, really immobilized him. But he needed some help to become what he was to become. If you look in verse 10, there's a fella named Ananias, and the Lord calls his name, and he says, "Here I am, Lord." Lord beckons him to do something, and he rises to the occasion immediately. By the way, the word immediately, I believe, is used 42 times in the Gospel of Mark. Acting immediately. When the Lord looks to get your attention to do something, you need to do it immediately. Just go for it. People procrastinate, and that's not the way. If God calls you, surrender. If he beckons you, move. Ananias, he said, "Hineni, here I am, Lord." And then he gave him instructions in verse 11. Get up and go to the street named Straight, and there you're going to run into such and such a person, etc. There's a divine appointment in response to some stimuli, in response to which, when he got the message, he got up and he went immediately. I want you to hear me on that. If the Lord prompts you to do it, do it. What would have happened if he didn't, you know? Now, he did have some objections to it. He was told to go, there's a guy named Saul there, and the Lord says that you need to minister to him, and understandably. Ananias in verse 13 says, "You know, boss, I've heard about this guy. You know, he's been jamming up believers, causing a lot of harm. And everyone's running from him and worried about him. And now, let me get this straight. You want me to go talk to him?" Didn't make a lot of sense. In verse 15, the Lord said, "Go." Said it again. "For he is a choice instrument to carry my name before nations and kings and Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel." He who looked like a problem carried potential and possibility. He says, there's a conjunction, verse 16, "For I will show him how much he's going to suffer." And Ananias said, "Listen, this guy's caused a lot of suffering." And he said, "Look, you go, this is an instrument. And talk about suffering, he's going to have to bear some of it himself." Now, there's a few things in here that are beautiful. And I've already landed it, I think. That is, when the Lord beckons you to do something, do it. It might seem unreasonable. Do it. If you're beckoned to do it, go for it. Reach for it. Don't delay in the matter. It might not seem to make a lot of sense. I remember here this disciple didn't want to take on this assignment. I had come to know the Lord, and I had backslidden. I drifted away. I was at a bar, met some friends, and we went to this guy's apartment. And we were smoking dope. We were high as a kite. There's a knock on the door. And all of a sudden, this guy comes in. He's got a Bible under his arm, and, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And I thought, what an idiot. All you have to do is inhale. You can figure it out. You know, we're high as a kite, smoking a lot of dope. And I proceeded to ridicule him, to make fun of him. Of course, I believed everything he was saying, and I knew what he was doing. And I believed it all myself. I just drifted away from it, but I was giving him a hard time. I was an antagonist, but he graciously bore the insults. And, you know, I've never seen him since. I left that event, that party, never apologized to him for the hurling insults toward him, but I remember I left and I got down on my knees in my apartment. I says, "Lord, what am I doing?" I mean, I remember the guy's name. It was Vince. I says, "You know, here I'm making fun of him, but I know what he's all about and believe it. I just wasn't living it." I would imagine from Vince's perspective, it looked like a really tough assignment. Probably didn't want to do it. Who wants to be ridiculed? Who wants to go through all that? But he did it. He bore it up, and the Lord bore fruit out of it. No, I'm no Paul the Apostle. I'm no great by any stretch. I have not left an imprint on biblical history like the man did that I'm reading about here. I've endeavored best I can. Well, I don't even say the best I can, but I've endeavored to serve my generation with the gospel. But the reason why I'm in the game serving is because I had an Ananias that kind of was a stimulation to kind of get me the right direction. He got up and went. And him getting up and going got me up and going. And that's what happens here. The Lord miraculously is working in Paul's life, but he sends a man to disciple him, to instruct him, to pray with him, to lay hands on him. And the guy was willing to go do it. The guy had to deal with some anxiety, roll the dice against an uncertain future. He had to suffer a little. It didn't make sense to him. And he talked to Saul, who's going to be our Apostle Paul. And we're told he's going to have to suffer a little bit too. You know, it seems like the Lord prompts. The way the gospel gets out, it's by promptings and urgings and people that jump in the game and help make it happen. It's in different ways, different days. What you find here is Paul gets a jump here, and in no time flat, in verse 16, immediately scales fall from his eyes, and he jumps right in there. He takes some food in verse 19, and immediately in verse 20, we see that word immediately, he begins ministering, proclaiming Yeshua in the synagogue, saying he has been Elohim, the Son of God. There's this sparking. Point I want to make here, and I've made it before in Acts. The book's called Acts of the Apostles. I think it's a silly title. The book's really about the Acts of the Apostle Paul, but even that is overly simplistic, though Luke, the author, is Paul's biographer, and he is principally, though not exclusively, giving a story of Paul, Saul. But more than all that, it's the Lord's prompting. Maybe this book should be called the Acts of the Spirit, prompting apostles, prompting the sent ones. And there's a whole lot of that going on behind the scenes. You know, Ananias shows up, stimulates to move this game forward, and then drops off the pages. We don't know him through the ages like we do Paul. But there's individuals that step up and make a contribution. You know, I'm reading to you from the Tree of Life Bible, and there are a number of individuals that, if but for a moment, stepped up to contribute toward the manufacture of the book, this particular translation. Beyond that, in commending this forth, there are individuals who step up with a check, or they buy a Bible and give it as a gift. Individuals spontaneously, spirit-inspired, just help move the ball forward. It happens in Bible translations and Bible societies and congregations and evangelism. When God speaks, we go. And that's my word for you as I go. Be sensitive to the Lord's beckoning. Get in touch with that and do that. He might have you to pick up a cross and do something sacrificial, but do it. Because you never know, there's great blessings on the other side of it. When we die a little bit, we bring forth a little bit of new life. That is just a biblical principle. Thanks for going on the journey with me and letting me share some principles with you. Let's do it again, same time, same station in a week. Jeffrey Seif, signing out.